Welcome to the show, Meredith.
Hey, nice. Thanks
Hey,
for having me.
of course. So what is your sober date
So, February 28th of last year.
of 2023?
Yes, and so with my sober date, I don't necessarily follow some people may not consider it to be a sober date for them. For me, I've been clean and sober off of heroin, meth, fentanyl, anything like that. But I do have severe pain that I still deal with. So I use more holistic ways with that. So, I mean, some people don't agree with sobriety date, but to me, I'm sober.
Yeah, to me, I mostly call it a recovery date, if that makes sense. Like the day you
Right.
started recovery.
Yes.
And congrats on 18 months then, because that means you just hit 18 months recently.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I know that for sure because I just celebrated 4.5 years, and my sober from alcohol date is February 29th.
Oh,
So
sweet.
a day after you. Um,
Awesome.
but 4.5 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that's alcohol free. I've been clean from opiates since April 25th of 2018. I've been sober from alcohol or alcohol free, whatever you want to call it, since February 29th of 2020. And I've been clean from benzos and weed since April 1st of this year. So 5 months.
Awesome.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. So I have different recovery dates, you know what I mean, along the
Right.
way.
That's kind of, where I was kind of coming from with mine. It's, some people consider recovery, others may not, but just my approach to it is I'm not living in insanity and driving myself into a wall.
Yeah.
So,
So my favorite question is what was happening for you February 27th of 2023?
so that's I was in bliss with a man that I had met out of prison. Um I was falling madly in love with this man, and I knew in order to love him, or to be loved by him properly, that I had to make a decision. And it had finally come to that point to where I was like, okay, even if it's not for him, even if things don't work out with him, for myself, this is something I need to do. So we'd been out on the water that day. We were like riding his boat and stuff. He knew nothing about it. I mean, he knew I was an open book. He knew my past. He knew my story. He knew I was using. I didn't do it in front of him, of course. It was behind closed door kind of thing. But I brought everything with me that day on the boat. And I had this gut feeling in my heart like, this is the day. I'm just going to make the decision. So I threw my whole stash into the bay. And this man had never been exposed to somebody coming off of IV use heroin ever. So he was in for a treat. I was like, man, I'm sorry. Cause of course I'm instantly second guessing, like, oh shit, what did I just do? And then he was like, I got you. I'll take care of you. I'm so proud of you. He's super supportive here, but he truly is oblivious to what this means. He's like, okay, tomorrow I got to go sign papers I'm buying this condo over here, blah, blah, blah. We'll go and catch some dinner and go out to eat with my friends and stuff. And so I'm huddled up in the car, going through the worst withdrawals of my life. Just insane and trying to hold it together until finally I was like, hey man, just take me to rehab and they'll know what to do with me.
Yeah, because you were coming off of what, heroin, IV use, and did you say meth too?
Yeah, speedball, just.
Yeah.
And by the time that I had quit, so little backup story, I was in prison for over a year. And when I got out of prison, heroin was non-existent in my area. I mean, more or less. It was hard to find. Whenever you did, it was mixed up with fentanyl, and I didn't that didn't give me the euphoria I was seeking. That didn't do it for me. That wasn't, and it was just everybody that I was surrounded with. It was getting more and more grimy and more, just the ick. And so I was like, this isn't for me anyways. But yeah, at the time when I came off, it was fentanyl, whatever I was getting my hands on the street, which who knows,
Yeah. So we'll backtrack even further, then we'll catch up to where we are. Where are you born and raised? You don't have to say which city, but which state?
Yeah, Alabama, North Alabama, 1993. So 31.
1993. So you're what, 31 years old?
31, yeah.
Okay. That's when I got clean for the first time. I was 31 going on 32.
Oh, sweet.
And I was 31 and a half when I figured out what recovery was for the first time back in 2018. So if I can do it, you can too, because I was pretty far gone. My speedballs were Coke and Oxy 30s. So I was mixing them up in lines and putting Xanax inside of them too. And it wasn't a pretty sight.
I can imagine.
I was trying to stop my heart. You know what I mean? Like I was just done with life towards the end. And I was just like, I could do this amount of, drugs and still survive. Then I should get clean because I don't have many more in me. So you grew up in Alabama. I could hear a little Southern twang. I think you're the third person from Alabama on my show that I can think of. So I have my buddy LC. I'm doing his show next week. And then my friend Nicole, and she has a big online presence. I did her show last week, and she was on my show too this month because it's recovery month. So I'm putting out a new episode every single day in September. So lots of recording. Make 30 episodes for 30 days. Yeah, your cat is just staring at you right now.
Yeah, that's baby cat.
What's her name?
Baby cat.
Baby cat. You just went right for the
yeah. That's just what she wanted to be, I guess.
One of my friends named their cats Cat Stevens and always called him Cat. So that's so funny. You're the only two people that I know that named your cat Cat. So you grew up in Northern Alabama. What did you discover first, alcohol or drugs?
Well, my mom was an alcoholic, and so she was a lesbian, alcoholic, hairdresser, eccentric in North Alabama, fairly small town. It was. And she moved us around often. I went to 8 different schools between kindergarten and graduation, ending up graduating in Atlanta, 5 years of private school. So it was all over the place. But I saw the chaos that alcohol was causing my mom. So I was like, I'll never drink. That will never be me. But I loved when she was smoking pot and taking her Xanax. That was cool. That was a good vibe. So I started smoking with my mom about age 12, 13.
Okay.
And
Any
then
siblings?
I had a brother, but he didn't live in the house. He was 8 years older and his father had custody of him.
Okay. When did your parents split? How old were you?
My mom, as I said, she was kind of a lesbian. So she and my dad were never actually together. I was just kind of planned. But my mom had multiple partners through my life. A girlfriend for 6 years, then a different girlfriend for 6 years. And then she got with a man when I was like around 13, 14. And you can imagine that did not go over well with me because now there's a man in the home trying to be an authority figure. And I was like, do what? I never really had any of that structure there. So yeah, it was different, and we moved around a lot. So I was taught to be a chameleon young and kind of adapt to my surroundings.
So you're 12, 13, you're like, fuck alcohol, I'm never going to touch that. Yeah. But I do like this green stuff that you have.
Yeah.
Let me try that out.
Yeah. And so then, of course, all of my friends in my social group kind of encompassed that. You know, I started hanging out with the park kids, and so we were tripping on acid on the weekends. We're doing mushrooms, a little X pills here and there. You
I
know,
loved acid. I loved acid back.
free, you know, the freedom, the young, the curious, the truly spiritually like a child. I
Yeah.
mean, really, your soul is open. You're just experiencing the moment, and there's none of that ick and grimy and ugh at that
When
point.
I was 21 when I tried acid for the first time,
Mm.
and I had such an amazing experience mentally. I
Mhm.
can't imagine what it would be like for a 13-year-old to have those introspective thoughts. Because
Yeah.
for those of you that aren't familiar with acid, not only is it a body high that's like smoking 8 blunts to your head, the body high wise for an acid, but the thoughts in your head are like you're a philosopher and you're learning all of this shit about yourself when you know what I mean. Like it's wild the stuff that you go through with acid. And I haven't done acid in like I guess I was like 24, so it's been a solid like 13 14 years since I've done acid. I always like doing acid with people that never did it before and I could like walk them through the
Skip
journey.
trip 'em. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Trip it.
So now you're trying, and ecstasy I've only done twice, and I didn't really like it. I don't know why. I do know why. People always knew when I was rolling. They would
Mhm.
like I got both times I did it, I got called out for being like high because I was just like ear to ear smiling and yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, been there.
So I didn't like ecstasy as much. Acid was a fan favorite. Um, when I got clean in 2009 was the first time that I tried getting clean, and I moved to Massachusetts from Jersey because I moved 30 times in 15 years,
Oh, wow.
and 5 different states. And when I moved back to Massachusetts, my parents were in Jersey visiting family, and I went to their house in Mass, and my buddy came with me, and we brought a 1/4 ounce of weed. We brought an eighth of mushrooms and 4 hits of acid and 6 Suboxone pills. And I was taking the subs for the withdrawals, and then I took 2 hits of acid. I ate a bunch of mushrooms, and then I threw up right away. And as soon as I threw up, the acid kicked in
Oh, yeah.
and started tripping. And it was such a enlightenment experience that it helped me stay clean for like 4 months until I was back on the wagon of finding pills again.
Mhm.
Um, so you're 13, you trip, you smoke weed, your friend group smokes weed too, and you kind of yeah, and at no point you're like, I'm gonna drink yet.
I mean, at that point, it's kinda like whatever's around. I did drink, but it wasn't my thing. It was never my thing. Like, I was open to try anything. I was truly under the belief I wanted to try every drug that there is because I felt like it could have no power over me. I was too smart and I was too strong up here to ever become addicted to anything. Um,
Yeah.
but I remember the first time that I snorted Roxy, and an OC80, a piece of an OC80, and I remember throwing projectile vomiting out of my friend's door and sitting back and feeling this confidence that rocked my soul. I mean, it was just like, "This is it. This is the height." But I was so young, you know, and impressionable, but I remember it leaving its mark then. But it wasn't readily available, and then I moved to Atlanta as well, so my friend group kinda changed. I just kinda went back to just the smoking weed and things like that. Alcohol really wasn't you know, a thing.
Yeah, so you tried a Roxy for the first time at what, like 14, 15?
15, about 15, yeah. Meh.
Yeah, I know that feeling of the first time I snorted a line of Roxy 30, the little blue ones,
Mhm.
and they tasted so good. You know, there was none of that like
Oh, yeah.
disgusting Coke drip makes you feel like you're throwing up and something stuck in your throat.
Yeah, yeah.
But the drip from Roxy's I liked, and I
Mhm.
romanticized, and I was like, I want this all the time. And you moved to Atlanta, like you said. How long did it take you to find anything harder in Atlanta, being the new kid in school?
Well, so I was an odd kind of teen anyways. So I started hanging out with in Little Five Points. If anybody's around the Atlanta area, you know that there's like Little Five Points, and it's predominantly homeless people and like very artsy, cool part of town. So I was hanging out there. So a lot of things became readily available to me. But at that time, I was still more kind of pressing towards the affinity of like mushrooms or, natural. And I was kind of like, as much as I enjoyed the pills, I'd kind of gotten to the point like before I'd left, I felt a little taste of what withdrawals could be like. Cause I was like, I mean, I was doing it enough to the point that I was like, oh, this could be a problem there. So when I moved to Atlanta, I was like, no, I'm just going to do what's natural, no pharmaceuticals. I was on acid and stuff. So, I mean, my mind was like, this is the better
Okay.
route. Let's go the
Yeah.
natural route. So, and I had dreadlocks for 5 years too. There's that. I was just kind of like that hippie chick. So I rode that out for a few more years. Um, and then when I went to graduate high school, my mom was getting back with the man that she was with. So she was leaving. And the woman that she was with in Atlanta, of course, I can't just stay there. So it's kind of like I had a full ride scholarship. I could have went to SCAD or Georgia State. I was great academically. Um, but I had to figure out my own housing until I could get into a dorm room that following semester. So I started dating this low life, like one of the homeless people basically from Little Five Points, and he's older guy and that gets abusive and it gets like really kind of shitty. And I had no family there because my mom had moved back. All the rest of my family is up there in Huntsville. So I was like, you know what? This sucks. I'm leaving. So I go back up and my mom introduced me to what would be my first husband. And my first husband, in turn, introduced me to my first love. And that was becoming, it was codeine powder. It was just pure codeine powder. Um, but my stipulation when I got with him was that he quit. He told me like he sold weed and I thought he was a hustler. He had 2 little part-time jobs and he was in school. I thought that he was 10 years older than me. I'm 18. I'm getting out of this shitty abusive relationship. And so this guy to me is like the holy grail. Like we vibe, it's all good. But I told him, I'm like, man, I'm not cool with the pills and stuff. No, like you can keep selling weed, but I don't want you on the pills. So he had made me believe that he'd quit for me. And I walked out one day, I come back in, he drops the sack of codeine powder and he's looking at me like a deer in headlights and was like, you want to hit? And from there it was on. I felt like I'll show you, this can't have that much power over you, that kind of thing. And of course it did. That escalated quickly. But then once we did get married, um, we went to the methadone clinic. I tried that. I was running my grandparents' business, financially set. We were just doing the thing. We were just doing the life. We were even involved in our church. I mean, we were just living.
So how did you get him? Why did you get on methadone? Was it that bad already?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it progressed because he was kind of selling too. So we
Yeah.
had pretty ready access, to the pills. And at the time, that's what we were doing. We were just snorting. It was just the pills, but we knew that like we couldn't sustain like that too. Like I was going to start working for my grandparents and it was just some issues. It's
Are,
beginning to go.
are you back in Alabama now?
Yes, yes. Well, when I moved back to Alabama, we got married up there, and yeah, in North Alabama.
Okay. So now you're going to the methadone clinic once a day, but you're running a business. Um,
Hmm.
he's working a couple different jobs, going to school.
He fell off of all of that once we got married. Actually, he just kind of stayed at home as a husband, but it was cool. I put up with it, you know. But yeah.
So how long were you maintaining? Were you still doing the pills even when you were doing methadone? Because I know people.
No, no. When we were on the methadone, like we'd even quit smoking weed. I mean, we were just doing our thing, you know,
They
just
drug test you, right?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, he couldn't get his take homes because he would occasionally do benzos, you know, but that wasn't my thing at the time. I really wasn't with that, and I didn't want to risk dying, you know. At that time, that wasn't really you know, my
Yeah.
thing. So, and I was really young. I was naive, you know. I was 18 years old and I was just fresh into the world. I thought that he and I were going to last forever. We were going to be married forever, you know. So, um so
How
then
how long? Yeah, go ahead. How long does it take? How long are you on methadone before you were back to some old ways?
well, so the methadone we'd wean down, we'd come down, and then the plan was to just stop. But at that time I had a full-time job. I couldn't just stop. Even like if you get down to the lowest on methadone, it's pretty or at some point it was like we'd went down low enough to where we couldn't justify spending that much daily dose money to get that little amount of methadone. We moved to Athens. So when we came off of there, we went to Subutex because that was a cheaper route. We could get them, you know, on the street. They were cheaper that way. It was just we'd swapped to Subutex. But at that same time, we had kind of moved out that way because my mom was diagnosed with cancer. She was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and given 6 months to live. We actually buried her on my 21st birthday, literally on my birthday. Um,
I'm sorry to
and
hear that.
thank you. But when that happened, my ex-husband and we moved to Panama City Beach, and I managed to lose my mom, house, husband, car, job, sanity, self-respect, and everything within a matter of 6 months. Um, really, when we moved down to Panama City Beach, I had a great job down there. I was managing, general manager over an ice cream shop. Um, and really, I mean, loving life. But or had a beautiful opportunity, but I didn't know anything about like coping with grief. And I hung on to that anger and that resentment for so long that it perpetuated my using. So I picked up a needle for the first time. I started doing meth. We moved to heroin because once we were there, that was our justification because that was all that we could find, if that
So
makes
my question is, how did you find meth and heroin out of because like you were on pills
sense.
and like
Hmm.
codeine, which is like it can be kind of intense enough for you to get on methadone.
Hmm.
And you're on methadone, and then you stop that and go on Subutex because you can get
Hmm.
them on the street. So then you move down to Florida, right?
Yeah, we moved down to Florida. Yeah.
And then once you're in Florida, what's it take for you to be like, okay, I want to try meth now? Because that's like the
Yeah, it
total
was a big
opposite.
jump. It was a
Yeah.
bit it was my mom passing. I truly had no, and also, yeah, when she passed, I was so angry. I wanted to blame my grandparents, even though they were the ones that were taking care of my mother and giving her. I wanted to be angry with them. I wanted to be angry and blame anybody because I didn't understand how this could happen to me. You know, my childhood with my mom, it was rocky and it was very bad and it was rough at times, but there were periods where I felt more like her mother rather than the other way around. So during all of that, it felt like I was losing kind of like a child and my mother and my best friend because we had more of a friendship. So I was very angry. I didn't know how to grieve. I was already wrapped up into an addiction that I had zero knowledge on recovery, on sobriety, on what it meant to be an addict. Like I went to the methadone clinic and I really still didn't process and function the fact other than I would go through withdrawals if I didn't have this. But I didn't really understand anything about recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand how that goes. When my dad passed away from colon cancer last June, he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and he lived about 11, 12 months with it before, he, ultimately passed from it. And I've also lost a fiance to suicide. I've lost a best friend to a car accident. So like I wasn't, and oddly enough, the day my dad passed was exactly the same day 12 years later or 11 years later that my best friend passed. Like both passed away on the same day, June 12th, just 11 years apart. And I was 5 years into my recovery at this point, and I was able to get my psychiatrist to, write me Ativan and then write me Valium. And then I learned I could snort my Valium, so I started snorting my Valiums, and it was just horrible. And that's why I was always a weed smoker. I smoked through my entire recovery. I even went to a rehab called High Sobriety, and which taught you how to use weed as a medicine. And I was doing it as a medicine for a while. But after that happened, I was smoking all day, every day. So like I wasn't processing correctly. So I totally understand and sympathize with you or empathize with you of why you went that route. What did it take for you to go from snorting? Because it sounds like you were a big snorter. What's it take to go from snorting to a needle?
So back in Huntsville, back in Alabama, I wasn't exposed to any IV users. I was never exposed really, like even all of my friend groups that did the Molly, the acid, the shrooms, they never had heroin or meth around, or nobody was ever sitting in the corner shooting up. The people that did do that behind closed doors, that wasn't part of my my circle. So, I'm sorry. So I got distracted. I apologize. So once I moved to Panama City Beach, that was readily available. That was, we had kind of just met these couple of people that were there that were kind of street people. They sold and they used. And so they kind of used us for a place to come and get high. And we used them to get access to drugs. And I mean, it just was what it was, but it escalated quickly. It was just seeing that around and seeing the way that they were reacting and just that but also my ex-husband at the time, he was 10 years older than me. And so I was and he had experience doing these things prior to meeting me. So he was kind of leading the way. And I don't want to put that blame on him. I'm still there to make the decision, but I was that was, you are who you hang out with, I guess.
No, yeah, the saying I like is you're the average of the 5 people you spend time with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it amounted to ultimately. I mean, we all started just using like that, and it went downhill quickly. So he and I split up quickly within that as well, because at this point he isn't working. And now my addiction is really taken off, and I'm seeing him as just kind of a leech to my using. Because at the time I was still able to juggle a job and income. But then of course, IV and using and stuff and using meth, it did not work. It all went. So I was just living out of my car, and then my car got stolen. And my ex-husband is gone. I have no family around. I'm literally like 6.5 hours away from any relative, any friend, any family, anybody that I knew outside of this little group of people that are on drugs that I know in Panama City now. So I was walking down the street completely homeless, nothing but the clothes on my back and like a little tweaker backpack with flashlights and headlamps and crap, I'm sure. Um, but at the time I didn't want my grandparents, my family, what remaining family I did have back home, they're worried to death about me, but I'm too stubborn and prideful and in my own little lane. I won't even reach out to let them know I'm alive or okay. And I think a lot of it was shame. It was shame and guilt, but resentment and anger as well. So it just kind of put a wedge between us there.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that's rough. How long did you live homeless then?
So I lived down there about 2 years, 2 more years. So I'm at like 23 when I came back. My little cousin, sweet as can be, she came and was on vacation there. She coerced me into coming back. So I had moved down there, a married woman with a nice job, a U-Haul, basically a car full of stuff. And I'm coming back with a little duffel bag with nothing. My spirit's broken. I'm just like coming back like a prodigal son. I'm literally just coming back at my remaining family's mercy. Like, here I am. This is what it is. Just brutally honest. Come out with it. Just, this is it.
Can I ask how you because like you weren't working those 2 years you were homeless?
Yeah.
How were you able to stay high the entire time?
You've been on drugs, man. It's any way, by any means possible. I mean, it was just a constant cycle, a vicious cycle. I was selling drugs. I was middlemanning. I was, the time dating drug dealers and, just constantly within a network. But
That makes sense.
I was always, as a female, I do feel like a lot of times it's easier to have that constant supply, because you're always welcome to hang out with other people that do have it as well. But I also did side jobs. I was at the beach, so there was a lot of condo cleaning jobs that would come available. I would do literally anything. I worked at a snow cone stand for a couple of months. I mean, just literally anything that was continuing that cycle, or, as long as I could show up for those jobs, or not be on a bender so long before that I pass out. But during that time, I actually had lost my vehicle and lost my job. So I couldn't get back and forth because we had started going to the methadone clinic down there as well. I forgot to mention that. We had started going back there before my husband and I had split up. But without my car and without a consistent job, I couldn't afford or have a consistent way to get to the methadone clinic. So I had to use meth to come off of the methadone, essentially. It was hell.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you go back to Alabama. What year is this? Because you were born in 93.
Now we're in, let's see, 2016 or 18? No, like 2018, maybe.
Okay.
17, somewhere around there.
Okay. And
Yeah.
did you go to rehab?
No. So I still at this point had no idea about recovery. I have no idea about it. I'm just white knuckling it. I mean, I'm just literally like, okay, my family, they get me some clothes and give me a place to live and help me get into a job, give me a car to drive. They build me up. They put me back on this pedestal. They're like, we love you. Here you go. I have every opportunity in front of me to succeed, other than the knowledge about what the root problem that caused my using is. I have zero knowledge other than I'm angry, and don't know how to cope, don't know how to deal. So I get a good job, making some money, putting it in my pocket, feeling good, feeling, going to the gym, getting my workout on. And then I meet a guy and, we vibe, he's working at the same plant I am. He's got it all together. It looks like he's older. He's established, we have things in common. It's all going good. But he's also a weekend warrior. He's an alcoholic. He goes to the pain clinic because he has a bad back from a motorcycle wreck and stuff. So I ease back in legally. I started drinking with him, and it's nothing wrong if we're taking his prescriptions, right? That was my justification. It's like, I'm not shooting up heroin or meth, so I'm good. I can control it just popping a pill here and there. So it was like October 2018, I believe it was. We had decided to go on a meth bender. And this was the first time we had snorted some Adderalls prior, right? Like, just hanging out for sexual enhancement kind of thing. And so we have a week trip planned to take the camper and go on a trip. And he's like, why don't we do something fun? Let's maybe get some meth. I'm like, okay, cool. So I call up, I get us a 1/4 ounce of meth. At the time, it was a very difficult thing to go even find it. I was out of the loop. I was not in it up there. Find it, we get it. We spend a week on this trip together, getting high, just getting high, just getting high. And
Were
it
you
resulted
using
in
needle
it.
again?
No, just smoking. But it actually resulted in me getting my pinky shot off. He held a gun to me, and then he held it to himself, and I tried to grab the gun from him, and when I did, my pinky went over the barrel of the gun, and he shot through my pinky. It shot through his head. It went up his nasal cavity and out between his eyes, and he lived at that time.
So he pulled a gun on you, not as a joke.
No, it was not a joke. But it was really, he was going to kill himself if I left. And we were arguing before, and I was like, look, man, because he didn't want to stop using. And I was like, look, we got to get back to work, man. Like, we've got work to get back to next week. Like, we got to chill out. And I was like, I'm just going to go back and stay at my grandparents for a few days. And he was like, okay, well, you've got to see this. And my finger was there. Bad day. So make a bad situation even worse. Fast forward 5 days. My finger has a hole in it, and it has like a splint holding it on. I'm in pain, but really I'm in pain emotionally. And I'd already just relapsed on meth, and everybody knows about it. So now I make a bad situation even worse. I go over to Huntsville. I hit up my old heroin dealer, and I get arrested with him. I give him a ride, and we get pulled over, and he throws over 12 grams of heroin, meth, cocaine, and some pills all in my lap. And I had a pistol on me as well. So I caught a trafficking heroin charge plus 4 other felony charges in one day. And I had a finger held on with a popsicle stick in the county jail. So that was a cool conversation piece, I guess, at the time. And my grandparents came to bail me out. So I get out.
When did you get the finger taken care of? You know what I mean? Like,
they bonded me out, right? Like after the weekend when I got arrested. And I got it amputated the week following. I already had an appointment set up to go and get it, fixed. So it was the following week I had to go and get it amputated.
Did you end up breaking it up with that guy?
Okay, yeah, this is cool. So, no, well, we did at that point. And we actually each went on back to work. He recovered. We both go back to the same job. We're not seeing one another at this time. We start seeing other people. At the time, I'm still dabbling, but not, I was kind of under more of a close watch for my grandparents. So I had to keep it under wraps more. But I was still dabbling. Well, then I had this bright idea. Well, since I already have a felony conviction, a trafficking charge that has a mandatory minimum that I have to serve in prison, there's no doubt I'm going to prison anyways. So my distorted, addicted mind started thinking, okay, well, then you might as well just go and get high until they pick you up for prison, right? Don't try to fix the situation because it's already too late for that. So I was like, I'm just going to go have fun and live it up until that happens, until I have to go to jail. Well, that didn't happen. I just hit rock bottom and dug and dug and dug deeper because I ended up catching a series of more charges, got my bond revoked, in and out of jail. It was that chaos, that craziness. Well, after a small stint in jail, I get out. I got sent to a rehab in there. So I actually had an understanding of what sobriety was. So the guy that shot my finger off, he and we tried to rekindle things, right? Now that we're stable, things are kind of going good. We tried to kind of do it there. But that was just a toxic relationship that kept going back and forth.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was bad.
So you discovered rehab. You went to rehab and you discovered what recovery was like. Now, when you were in jail, how long did you have to first stay for?
I'd say I'd spent like a week or two or, a couple of nights here and there. I'd done that. But my first stint was like 4 months that I had to sit.
Were you using in jail?
No. Our county, now when I was in the Huntsville jail, a little bit more, but no, the county jail that I spent the majority of my time in, no, I wasn't. I was sober during that time. So they sent me directly to a rehab. It was a faith-based 12-step women's rehab, 6-month program, no cell phone, super strict. I did the thing, I got a job while I was there. I was doing great. I was loving it, but I got out and I got myself a little house. I bought a brand new car. I tried to, jump into work. I had all of this shit going on. You couldn't tell me nothing. And so I fell flat on my ass again, pretty much. I got lonely. I got tired of coming home to an empty house every day. I felt like I was working for nothing, that I didn't have a strong enough recovery network, a recovery group. I really just wasn't strong enough at that point. And I was too arrogant. I was like, look at me. I've got a brand new car. I've got a job. I've got it made. You can't knock me down to doing this. I'll never go back down there. Now that I know what recovery is, I can just ride the fence of it, I guess. So I relapsed again. I went back to jail and stuff. So then the ex and we had started trying to work it out. We went to a motorcycle thing in Panama City, bike rally. We were there for 3 hours and I got ran over by a motorcycle. And I woke up in ICU over a week later and I had staples all down my stomach, every rib, and you can see my scar up here maybe. All of that's metal. I have a zipper scar that goes down my stomach. My whole right leg is a metal rod in there. It broke my L4, L5 in my spine, my pelvis, my hip. It mangled me up. I had to learn how to walk again. And I spent 30 days in Panama City, Bay County Hospital. And they released me with a week's worth of pain pills. And I was already addicted to opiates going into this wreck. So, I felt like when I got released, I had no other alternatives, no option, nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's...
How long ago was this?
This was, let's see, 2020.
So before COVID or during COVID?
It was, I'm sorry, I'm bad with numbers. I have it written down right here, actually.
I'm trying to get the timeline of where we're at.
Okay. Yeah, so that was in I got ran over. It was April of 2020.
Oh,
April.
okay. So that's and Florida was one of the last places to shut shit down.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was during COVID because they would only let one of my grandparents in there for a while, and it was a mess.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why I was asking. 30 days in the hospital was almost dangerous back then because of COVID. Um,
mhm.
so now you get out of the hospital. Did you go back to Alabama where you had your house and your job and all that?
Well, by that point, I'd already kind of lost that. Like once I'd already kind of just lost that. And I was trying to make it work with my ex, and
Your ex-husband, not the ex that shot
no,
his
no,
face.
no, no, the ex that shot my finger off.
Oh,
Um,
that guy.
yeah, so being with him in Panama City Beach for 3 hours, I get ran over by a motorcycle. So should have known this guy's bad news completely. You know what I mean? It's just all bad. Um, I come back from the wreck, and I come back, and my grandparents and my uncle, they take me in. They take me in, and they have to literally carry me into the house on a walker, or on a bed thing. You know, my uncles have to
A
carry
gurney.
gurney. Yeah, yeah. They have to carry me in a gurney. I'm still in a wheelchair. I can't do anything, but I also know that I'm about to go through withdrawals once these pain pills run out. And they're taking me to physical therapy, but I felt as though I had no other option. I didn't have insurance. All of this just kind of came up on me. And so I went back to the ex that shot my finger off and that I got ran over with. Um, and we, of course, started using together heavily. Um, and at the time, I was already violating probation, but the jail didn't pick me up just because they didn't want to deal with all of my medical injuries. I mean, I was that bad. They knew about the accident. They knew that they didn't have the facilities to be able to keep up with that. At this point, I'd served like another 6 months here and another, so they knew me at this point. But they were like, "Look, Meredith, I mean, we don't know what to do with you at this point." The sheriff was like, "We don't want to take that responsibility on." COVID was still going on, so they were given a little leeway. And so I was just kind of hobbling around through addiction on a cane and a wheelchair there for a little while, like just back out at it. I mean, just hadn't got enough. So I managed to heal up amazingly somehow. And then I ended up they came and picked me up one day. I'm like healed, and I'm still selling drugs at this point. I'm still, hustling. I'm still doing all of this stuff. I'm running around burning my candle at both ends. My justification at the time was that I was a heroin addict. I would sell meth to pay for my heroin habit. You know, that was my kind of outlook on it. So, it kind of hit ahead when they picked me up, and they were going to offer me rehab again. And I was like, you know what? Screw this. If I go to rehab again, I'm not done using. I know this. I'm not going to waste their time. I'm not going to waste my time. Plus, if I go to rehab, I'll get out. I'll be on probation. I'll screw that up. I had already just kind of come up with this mindset and mentality that I'm going to screw it up anyway. So forget it. And so I went to court and I got sentenced to prison in 2021, the end of 2021. And I remember after I got sentenced to the Department of Corrections in the state of Alabama, I turned around in the courtroom with the other inmates that are in there, handcuffed and shackled. And I looked back and I said, I'm more of a man than most of you fuck boys in the street. And I meant that in my soul. You know what I mean? Because they were back there crying, trying to plead out to some rehab again and stuff. And I'm like, I'm hard. I'm going to prison. You know what I mean? Because I glorified that mindset so much. It's crazy to me now to think. But I was just like, I'm so tough, man. Fuck this, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me.
No, you can.
Okay. So I go to prison, and I got a wake up call real quick, real quick.
Yeah, prison isn't jail.
No, no, not especially not my little, like, Podunk County jail where I knew everybody and they loved me, and you know what I mean? I had, it was like it had kind of gotten to a place where it was like home. Other than not being able to get high in there, it was comfortable. I didn't have to worry about shit. I was around my friends, you know? I mean, what else could you ask for? But when I went to prison, this reality kicked in for me. It was that I don't want to be more of a man than any man. That didn't speak for how much of a man I was. That spoke to the low caliber of men that I was comparing myself to or hanging out with, because they weren't real men. They weren't really taking responsibility in their life, So, and I didn't want to sit there and say that I was a man. I didn't want to be a man. I sat there in prison, and truly podcast got me through. I listened on my little tablet on the top bunk. I started meditating. You see my shirt, heavily meditated. I started meditating and manifesting just something different when I got out. I really wanted something different, and I didn't know what that was. I just knew I wanted something different. So the end of, let's see, I got out in September of 22. I got out of September 22. I went with my grandparents on a little trip, but mind you, in prison, I was using Suboxone every day. I was getting Suboxone. I would get meth sometimes, really just anything to cope with what I was going through in that time. But at the same time, I was still under the mindset of, I want something different than this. I just don't know what it is. So I got out. I spent a couple weeks with my family, and then it was kind of right back at the rat race. It was just like getting into it, but I still knew that it wasn't resonating. Once again, there wasn't heroin anymore. It was all fentanyl and this crap, whatever tranquilizer stuff that they...
Xylazine.
Yeah. I was like, what is this shit, man? Haven't you heard of real drugs? Like, what is this, So it wasn't really sitting well with me anyways. I was just kind of like, this isn't for me. I don't like this. And something, I guess, in my energy field attracted this wonderful man into my corner, into my life. A few weeks after prison, I met my now fiance, Steven, and he never asked me to get clean. He never told me I had to. It never was anything like that. Because I knew that was what he was worth, was to do that. But then I started realizing through loving him or being loved by him that I was worthy of love. And something that I've found since then is that I've been to rehab before. I've been to the 12-step faith-based. I grew up in church. I used to go to church even when I was using, so it wasn't a lack of knowing that there's a God. It was just truly not having any kind of spiritualness behind it. I knew the dogmatic religion. I didn't understand spirituality to the full degree.
There's as someone said this in a meeting once. You know how you take certain things from meetings that you hear and you kind of like stick with them, they stick to you. I heard in a meeting once, religion's for people who fear hell, and spirituality for people who have been to hell and made it back.
Yeah. That's truly like what has resonated with me. So since I told you in the beginning a little bit of the backup story of how he and we dated for several months. And then in that February of 2022 or 23, February of 23. Yeah. Thank you.
I got the timeline right here, Meridith.
Okay. Good deal. February 23. I threw my dope out. I went to a month of a rehab. I just went for a month. They sent me for a detox. It was gnarly. It was hell. It was pretty rough. But honestly, it wasn't nearly as bad as some I'd went through before, because I was ready to be done. It was the first time I threw the shit myself. I was like, you know what? Actually, I am worth more than this, and actually this isn't me anymore. This doesn't sit with me. It didn't resonate anymore. So it really wasn't as hard for me to come off this time, because I was truly done.
No, I
But
feel the same way. When I went to rehab, they were like, "Do you want Suboxone?" And I said, "No, I want this to hurt. I want this to be a reminder where I'm going to learn something." And I really only kicked, and this is a 10-year habit. I was kicking opiates, 10 years of Roxy 30s every day. And I get there, and at my worst, I was doing like 5, 6, 7 a day.
Mhm,
Um, I don't know how I was affording that habit, but I was, and $200 to $300 a day habit.
mhm,
And I get
mhm,
to rehab, and I really only was in pain for like 3 or 4 days. And I
mhm,
really feel like, because mentally I was in rehab because I went to rehab on my own. No one made me go, and I
mhm,
wanted to be there. So my mind was open to learning and hearing new things and relating to people. Because before, I was relating out. Somebody could be telling a story, and then they could say, "Oh, but I'm the youngest of three. Now I'm the oldest of three." So right away, we're not the same, and I'm not going to listen to a word you say.
yeah,
And you know what I mean? I was finding ways to relate out, but this time I was relating in to people's stories. And I
mhm,
was buying into the fact that what recovery is, learning
mhm,
about different things, learning about the 12 steps,
mhm,
learning, how to go to meetings every day and what to take, because I was suicidal in my addiction. You know what I mean? Like, I was picking out trees I was going to drive into and make it look like an accident. You know what I mean? And someone said in a meeting once, I didn't want I didn't want to kill myself, but I didn't want to be conscious anymore.
yeah,
That hit
yeah.
me. You
I
know what I
can
mean?
I can I can relate. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been there.
So do you do a 12-step program now that you're, been clean a year and a half?
Um, I don't. So, um, when I did go through the 30 days in the program that I was in, we did some step work and some things like that, but I didn't get a sponsor because I knew that I was gonna be moving in with my fiancé down well, he's my fiancé now, but I moved down here, and it was truly like a complete relocation. I moved 5, 6 hours away from hometown. We've done some meetings here. He's very supportive. He's come with me to some meetings. But what I found in my own path is that I have a group of other spiritual women I do yoga with. I do breath work. I am learning meditation. I'm learning more holistic ways
Yeah, and I
that
don't I don't
truly
judge you.
help.
Not yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 12 steps isn't for everybody. My wife's been sober 4.5 years, and she does something called recovery dharma, where it's a Buddhist approach to
Mhm.
recovery.
Yeah,
And
love that.
so, yeah, I don't judge people that don't use the steps. I personally use them because they've worked for me in the past.
Mm,
So, I kind of do what I knew worked for me in the past to kind of put myself back on the right track. But
mhm.
I fully believe that everyone has their own path, and I'm not here to judge somebody else's path just because it doesn't mirror mine exactly.
Right. Yeah. I
Um,
respect.
do you use weed
I do.
for your
I do at times for my pain. I and
So does she. She has MS.
yeah,
So with MS comes a lot of pain. So she doesn't
yeah.
take pain pills, but she still uses cannabis.
Right, and so there was a period where I was in transition as well, learning how to deal with my pain in a realistic way, because now that I've been ran over by a motorcycle and have all of this metal in my body and all of these injuries and things, and I'm getting older. I mean, I'm 31 now, but it wears on your body, especially all of the damage that I've done to it. I'm realizing, like, I'm gonna have to realistically learn to live with some amount of pain. But there was a transitional state where I'd used kratom,
Oh yeah.
which, I found, instead of going to a methadone clinic or Suboxone for me, those were things that I wish were more readily available when I first learned about recovery, and especially here in the deep South in Alabama. So I'm in school full time right now as well. I'm going to school and I'm wanting to go into social work. I'm wanting to do something, be maybe like a clinical director of like an outpatient kind of thing. That's my hopes one day, but have it where it's not fully just faith-based, because
Yeah.
here in the South, that's difficult to find. And I feel like so many people that are in such depths of addiction really don't have a good review of religion from their past, or the church may scare them away. And if you can offer them a soft, gentle, okay, well, here's another way to look at it. So that's my goal, and my hope is to be able to incorporate more of a holistic approach into recovery in my area.
No, I love that. I'm going back to school to be a therapist.
Awesome.
So I know that feeling. I'm not enrolled right now, but I'm looking to see if I'm going to do it all online or the university in town, because we live in a town called Bloomsburg and we have a university that's pretty big in our area. So I might just go back to physical school. It'll depend on my schedule. I work from 7 to 6:30 every day. Not every day. I'm off on Wednesdays and I'm off on weekends. And I spend my time, I get an hour and a half long lunch break every day that I work, because I do a Zoom meeting on NA every day. So
Cool.
I have to work an hour later, but it's worth it to have that hour in the middle of my day to like kind of reset my day. Did you have any other bullet points that we haven't touched on? Because I feel like we've touched on a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty much like summed it up. Since I've been down here, it's just been like everything's great. I'm in school, and I'm focusing on learning how I can help others as well in order to keep me
Yeah.
sober. So it's incorporating the steps as well. You know, it's now that I'm spiritually awakening, I'm finding that I want to learn how to give it back as well. So
No, yeah, you can only keep what you have by giving it away.
very true. So I have my suggestions to anyone trying to get clean, wanting to get clean. I wrote a few things. So be brutally honest with yourself. And that's what's worked for me, is to truly look deep within myself and remember who I am. Because there were so many parts of me that were working out of survival mode that was just like, gotta get the hustle, gotta get this high, gotta do this, gotta escape, gotta numb, but that wasn't the core of who I am. That was just a part of me that needed attention and needed, some love and compassion. So that's one. And then find your own truth, find what resonates for you, and leave the rest. It's not a one size fits all process. Like you'd said, 12
Yeah.
steps works for some. Religion, or mindfulness, the Buddhist, whatever it is, like there are different options out there. I wish that somebody had told me that a long time ago.
Yeah, me too. I totally get it. I
Yeah.
feel the same way. I wish that I didn't even know what Vivitrol was. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right. I just found that out like 6 months ago. You know
I
what I mean?
wish I knew what Vivitrol was, because it would have curbed my cravings. All I had
Yeah,
to do was get 4 good days in, and then, you know what I mean? And then just get that shot
crazy.
once a month. Like, I
Yeah,
wish I knew what Vivitrol was when I was out there using.
me too.
There's a lot of things that I've learned about in the last 3 years since I started my podcast. I've had people with all different modalities of how they got clean and sober.
Hmm.
And so I just like hearing the stories and relating to people and finding ways that, your story can resonate with somebody, that the last one I did can resonate with somebody else. And I try
Right.
to reach that kind of audience where they're not hearing 12 steps being hammered down their throat in every single interview. And I like the more people that are recovering in different ways, because I
Hmm.
fully support people using cannabis in recovery. I can't do it anymore. It
Hmm.
wasn't working for me, but I'm not here to speak for everybody. I'm here to help other people talk about their stories.
Right. And thank you for that. I love this platform.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. That's a really that's really what I want to do, is be able to give back as well.
Yep. Well, we can only keep what we have by giving it away, Meredith. So I appreciate you coming on. I know you were a little anxious, and I'm glad that, we did it anyway to put your story out there. Sorry about your pinky.
Okay. It's all good.
The pinky is the smallest finger to begin with. Now it's even smaller.
It's cool. It's a good conversation piece, right?
Yeah, exactly. How did you get your finger like that? Yep, exactly. I know what
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull for TikTok.
Cool.
Well, have a good night, Meredith. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming
You
on.
too. Nice
Nice to
meeting you.
meet you. Bye-bye.